Twitter, live up on Facebook. Intro's rolling. Alrighty. Let's play a full 200-foot game out there, boys. Trust the process, you know.
Game on.
Game on, dare I say. Grab the nets, toss the sticks in the middle. Time for another episode of Straight Off the Pipe, episode 51 tonight. 51's pretty special to us because we've got a pretty special guest. I'll tell you tonight. We've interviewed a few people on this network and on this show before. We've had Stanley Cup winners. We've had Oilers alumni. We've had, mainstream media from TSN. We've even had one of Jack's colleagues in Reed Wilkins. Heck, we even had the Honorable Dr. Jason Strudwick on this show, believe it or not. But this one tonight, I'm fangirling a bit. I'm not going to lie, Jack. This is pretty cool. I didn't get nervous for a lot of those episodes, but I was tonight. I really was. We were talking about the butterflies before when you got on before Durst and I. And so it's awesome. I'm really excited to have tonight and to kind of hear a little bit about what's going on with you.
If it's I think, awesome, why the hell was Reed Wilkins on before me?
You know what? It was the night.
I take that as a personal affront.
It was the night that Draisaitl was asked why he's so pissy. So it was relative.
All right, I'll let it slide this time. But
all right, one easy one.
I can't have Reed one up me in any facet of my life.
I appreciate that, and we will never make him a priority over the Jack Michaels. Let me tell you that for free.
All right.
But hey, it is. I say I'm fangirling, but you're one of the best, Jack, and that's not just blowing smoke up your butt. I think you've won the hearts of a lot of Oilers fans since you've been here. To me, the sign of a successful play-by-play guy is to be able to paint a picture, to be able to let the viewers see what you see through your words. And starting in radio, you had that ability to be able to almost paint that picture and create the content for the listener. And now that you're transferring it to TV, it's fantastic because I feel like we've got this like really vivid radio perspective on the TV. And I say I'm a fan, Jack. There may be no bigger compliment than the fact that I used to turn on the radio and turn down the TV and sit there and pause it until it was time so that I could hear your call on the TV in the past. So
I hope you still do that out of force of habit.
No, when I was a happy man when I heard that announcement was there, so I just love the way you call a game. I think your versatility and your humility make you relatable, and the way you're pacing and your build up, I can feel your background in horse racing and boxing and all of that. That overtime call is something from heaven, and the way you pace it like a horse race is something from the gods to me, man. I really believe that you really make hockey more enjoyable for me. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it. Feel free to go on. I mean, if we're going to just pump my tires, I'm all ears, bud.
If we do have any listeners, I'm sure they're sick of my voice. So we can do it there. So tonight, as always, was with me is my co-host, Mike Dursa. He's up at Grand Prairie tonight. I believe Jack is close to me in Sherwood Park. Jack in the Park, maybe we could call you for one night. So Durst, over to you. I know you've been waiting patiently while I do my thing and not shut up, and Jack's pretty good at not shutting up too. So give her while you can.
So being a Pennsylvania product, what does Mike Lang mean to you? And do you have a favorite call of his?
I think the thing that is lost with Mike Lang, sometimes even in Pittsburgh, but certainly like in the mainstream NHL is, he gets a lot of accolades for the Michael motorcycle and upstairs where grandma puts the cookies and all that stuff. And really that never mattered to me. When I was a kid growing up, all that mattered was I was fascinated by a guy who could string together paragraph upon paragraph of lucid commentary without a stumble. I mean, the Penguins of that era, the era I grew up in, played like the Oilers did. I mean, high octane, puck movement all the time, every time. There was continuous action when there wasn't goals going in the net. And he never stumbled, never stammered, never misused a word, never mispronounced a name. And I was just fascinated by that ability. And that combined with my own series of athletic futilities led me to think that maybe I could do that one day. And that's really what Mike Lang meant to me. It wasn't catchphrases. It was the fact that he was off the charts when it came to keeping up with the Penguins' pace while maintaining a certain vernacular and vocabulary that, I think most of us dare not dream of.
I think a lot of people just think play-by-play is screaming into the microphone and making people understand, but there's so much more to it, right? With the, like you say, the vernacular, the breathing, the pacing, and everything that goes along with it. So yeah, you can see the influence.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. I mean, I thought he had some signature stuff that I liked, and it's a hockey night in Pittsburgh and all that stuff, and that was great. But you know what? He meant a lot to me just by being a true pro, and I'm really honored. I mean, even to this day, he occasionally will drop me a line or send me a text and tell me how proud he is of me, and it means a lot. I mean, I certainly didn't think as a 13, 14-year-old kid that I'd ever have a chance to meet him, let alone be the recipient of a kind word or two from a guy who's like the guy that I followed. I mean, like Rod Phillips. I mean, Mike Lang, they're both Hall of Fame announcers, but they're far better people than they were announcers.
Yeah, well said.
Jack, most people don't know, but I did a little research today, and he gave you a little bit of a nudge too, didn't he?
Oh, 100%. He, I was, again, I'm from football country, and to this day, even, I'm an NFL guy. I love the National Football League. I get worked up. I mean, I rebelled against my parents and everyone around me and stupidly picked the Cleveland Browns instead of the Pittsburgh. I mean, I'll never understand that choice, but what can I say? My skull wasn't even hard yet. So, you make these decisions and you live with them. But, I did. I grew up I went to college thinking, definitely football, basketball, baseball, maybe something along the lines in that order. I mean, you got to remember when I grew up, basketball was, really popular. I loved it. Bird and Jordan, Magic. I mean, the NBA is a different game today. So I was of the, kind of the three major sports, and baseball was kind of on the wane for me. That was more of a little kid thing, but I was football, basketball all the way. And I did a little hockey on the side, and I was doing a state playoff game in Pennsylvania. They, the final four teams standing in Pennsylvania, 2 from the East, 2 from the West, they play at the home of the Flyers. They play at the home of the Penguins. Yeah. And then, on the back half of that is a Penguins game and a Flyers game. So I was doing what they call the Western Final, the Penguins Cup, and it went double overtime. And, the Penguins guys are there ready to, kind of do the game at 7. And now, the high school game probably started at 2, and now we're into 5:30, 6 o'clock. We're getting up against it. And, the game finished up, and both Mike Lang and then Matt McConnell, who is now still in the league. Mike just retired, but Matt McConnell's still the play-by-play voice of the Arizona Coyotes. And they both pulled me aside separately and said, "Hey, what's your story, blah, blah, blah." I mean, they could tell I was 22 years old, I think. And they said, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm, football, and I've got a few leads in college." I was trying to drop names like jobs I had applied for and hopefully were in the mix for. And they both independently said, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You should be doing hockey. Like, there's not many guys who can do hockey. And, we heard you and we think you do a good job." And so that totally was like kind of a slap in the face. Because to be honest with you, I hadn't made any headway in terms of, escalating my career in football or basketball. And lo and behold, a couple months later, I'm heading to Colorado Springs, and I've got a pro hockey job. And, that began my 11-year odyssey in the minors.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's pretty cool, man. I think you mentioned Rod Phillips too. We're all about the same age on this podcast here, I'd say. And, Mike and I definitely grew up with that voice in our ear and being Oilers fans since we were young. After 37 years of Rod Phillips being that voice of the Oilers, now, Dursa would understand the feeling of having to fill giant shoes, because every once in a while I don't make the show and he has to fill mine. Now, I don't have giant shoes to fill very often, but, for a guy like me, how did that opportunity feel, to jump in and have to take over for somebody like that?
Well, I mean, the way I viewed it is you're not replacing him. You're not filling his shoes. You're not any rough facsimile of Rod Phillips. And, the funny thing is I think, the Oilers could have gone out and got Chris Cuthbert or Gord Miller. It wouldn't matter. I mean, the bottom line is he's going to be Rod Phillips. And I actually think that worked to my advantage. I think people on some level, even those that hated me at first, hated me after 5 years, and maybe still hate me today, they'd acknowledge that, well, this guy isn't anything like Rod. He's not trying to pretend to be Rod. He's not using the same lingo. He's not trying to imitate. He's not trying to ingratiate himself. He's him, for better or for worse. And that's really the way I approached it. I just told myself, there's in the United States, there's a Southern proverb that says, when you're invited to the biggest dance of the year, you dance with who brung you. And I kind of applied that to my job. Why would I change? Why would I adapt? Why would I try to do anything other than what brought me to this spot in the first place? And it certainly wasn't going to be trying to be some cheap imitation of a Hall of Fame announcer. So, I was myself from the get-go. And, some people who may not have cared for me at first, present company included, I don't know, slowly kind of were like, this guy's not bad. And I've had some people reach out to me that said, 7 or 8 years ago, I hated you. And I don't know what it is, but, I'm an acquired taste. Just ask my wife and kids. Sometimes it takes a long, long time. So who knows? Maybe in 10 more years, I'll have a few more converts.
Sounds like living in Sherwood Park isn't the only thing you and I have in common then. So you start calling games. I got one more quick one for you, and then I'll let Dirks jump back in. So you get to Edmonton and you start calling games with Bob Stauffer. And I've heard you say in the past that he's one of the most unique friendships you've ever had. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, Stauf is an interesting cat. I think anyone who knows him would tell you that, they broke the mold when they made that dude. He's, it's funny. We always joke we've never gotten along better, and that's because we're only seeing each other maybe 5 nights a year instead of 80. But in all honesty, I think we're a lot more similar than we are different, but our differences were so pronounced. I think at one point Bob may have wanted to be the play-by-play guy. I think at one point he might have had a vision of who Rod's replacement was going to be if it wasn't him. And I certainly wasn't that. I think I've learned to let Bob be Bob and not try to be that classic only child that I am, where everything I say is right. I'm always the smartest guy in the room, and I mean, I still believe that, but I'm probably better for, like, I'm not going to change him. So why don't I learn to get along with him? And I think he eventually found that too. Like, we ended up, we were always good on the air. I thought it clicked right away, and I think we recognized that. And then aside from the microphone, we just decided to let each other be each other and stop trying to, we were both very strong personalities. And that's why Cam Moon is a perfect buffer. But actually, I mean, to be honest with you, like I said, like Bob and I learned to get along pretty quickly. And, you know, we, like anyone who works intensely together for a decade, you know, we still have our little flare-ups and our little blow-ups, but I think it comes from a place of understanding. And to be honest with you, that understanding was reached pretty quickly. I mean, we sorted it out in probably 6 to 9 months, and we reached a level of understanding where, you know what, we're a little different, but we work well together. So let's figure out a way to make it, you know, really enjoyable. And to be honest with you, I think Bob and I get along really well. And that's not just because Cam came. That was, you know, even the last couple of years, I think, you know, we always worked well together as partners. And I think when you come through some disagreements, you end up developing a pretty strong friendship.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, that's a well said at the end there, I think, right? You go through a little adversity and it can always make you stronger when you...
I'll tell you what, I feel this way about Bob Stauffer. I can say whatever I want about Bob, and he knows this, and I usually do, and always to his face. But I'm not going to let anyone say it about Bob. I have quickly put to rest those who've tried. So, and I think he feels the same way about me. I think we can jab each other, but if someone else kind of gets into that mix, it's not going to be well received.
I like that a lot. I feel like you just took a few minutes describing Dursa and I's entire relationship, because we were paired together on a network too and didn't know each other beforehand and had to find chemistry on the air. And I feel like we're kindred spirits a little bit because, you know, you do a lot of prep. I've heard you say, you know, you'll write out dozens of notes or dozens of pages of notes, and you only end up using 2 of them. Well, Jack, I'm the same way.
There you go.
and I'll use now, 2 pages in
Dash, I do have to tell you something. Can I interrupt you?
Yeah. Oh, I
gotta tell you that's not Dursa's version. He just told me you're an asshole.
There's no doubt he thinks I'm an asshole. That's fine, but it takes one to know one ultimately. But he's got a little more Stauffer in him, you know. He likes to wing it and, you know, drink a Red Bull and watch the U of A Golden Bears game while he's calling a hockey game. And
is that right, Dursa? You're a Red Bull guy too? Oh God! Don't tell me you're rock star too. Otherwise, I am gonna have to lock you and Stauffer in a room.
Yeah, no, I stick away from the energy drinks. I value my heart, but you know.
What about your teeth? Those energy drinks are like drinking battery acid.
There we go. Yeah, and I don't get much out of them. I'm pretty much dead all the time. Doesn't matter what I drink. So, Jack, I wanted to say to you, you know, Tom Brady was asked one time who his hero was by a little kid, and he answered him, "My dad." And you know, it was a moving moment. I heard that you're on vacation in Hawaii. You find out you get the job for the Oilers, and you call your dad. So is your dad your hero?
What are you trying to Roy Firestone me? It ain't gonna work.
I'm giving you the gimmies here, Jack. Come on.
Yeah, it is.
He's applying to be your psychologist.
Yeah, you're not going to get me to Cuba Gooding on you. Sorry. Years are all spent. Not a chance. No, you look, my dad and I are tight. We talk today. We talk most days. You know, I would say that, you know, for me, it's one thing to be an only child, which is, I think, a unique experience in yourself. I would say it's even more so, you know, when you're the only son and you got a dad like mine, you got a grandfather like my grandfather. It's different. I think my upbringing was different than a lot of people. I am tight with my dad. I'm not weird. He wasn't the best man at my wedding. He's not someone I need to live right beside. I think we drive each other nuts. We've gotten in fights where we've cursed each other out. I mean, we've had a volatile relationship, but we're tight. I mean, so I would say if you were to try to bolt me into some sort of psychiatrist chair, they'd tell you that most of what I do is probably hopefully that he'll be proud of me.
Awesome, Jack.
Sure he is.
When you took that job as the Oilers, the voice of the Oilers, what did they list for a job description in Alaska when you left?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, no, that at the risk of sounding a little self-important, I mean that they did
Man
get
of 25 hats required.
They did get a couple different guys in there for various my job, but I mean, it's not like I was reinventing the wheel. It was a little different up there. I think it paid off for me in my interview with Edmonton, even though, I haven't really carried forth any of those responsibilities. But I think to some degree, the Oilers, again, not ever hiring for a position before. I mean, I think
Right.
I think the story goes Rod Phelps basically volunteered to do the games, back in '72 when it was still a WHA team. So I think, come 38 years later and you're hiring for the position for the first time, there might have been some appeal in terms of, the depth of my experience in a wide variety of fields when it came to sponsorship, travel, PR, you name it. I basically touched everything other than merchandising, which I never have really been interested or involved in. So I think it helped. I think it helped that I was able to, the Oilers had about a 6 or 7 person, team to hire me. And they had the marketing guy in there and they had the finance guy in there. So I was able to relate to the different members of that search committee on a real personal level. And, the zeros might have been different with the sponsorships and some of the ideas might have been different in terms of large scale versus small scale. But I think, in that interview process, I probably more than most was able to connect with each and every person on that committee, whereas perhaps some other candidates, had a good chemistry with this guy, but not that guy. And when you're taking a pool of 5 or 6 opinions and everyone can say, well, Jack made an interesting point on this, that probably worked to my advantage.
We want to be
as did, I mean, Doc Emmerich threw in a kind word for me too. They called Doc Emmerich and, Doc, as he's done throughout my career, pump my tires vociferously and had some real nice things to say. And that was the relationship that, to be honest with you, he worked on as much as I did. I was not the best network guy. I, sometimes feel a little like it's too much glad handing or whatever, but Mike Emmerich really took an interest in me. And I think, having his name on my reference list certainly didn't hurt.
We want to be respectful of your time, Jack. So I just got a couple more and maybe Dash
sure.
has a couple more, but what's the best part of calling Oilers games?
I think it's being in the arena with the fans and being part of the show. Very small part of the show. I never wanted to be the Sports Center guy that sat in the studio and read highlights, which is why the last, year and a bit has been tough on me and tough on a lot of people. I mean, I'm not going to ask everyone to feel sorry for me during the pandemic. There's a lot of people who have it worse than calling games off a monitor. But what I mean by that is I'm a live event guy. I have a certain amount of juice when I'm there.
Takes one of your biggest tools away.
Yeah, to be in Rogers Place when it's going and there's a big game, there's nothing like it. And I mean that. I'm not saying that to cater to Edmontonians or kiss ass or anything. I'm just telling you that the vibe I get being in that building is a lot of fun. And it's when you're in the thick of it and you've got a lot at stake in a hockey game, it's a great place to be. And I think it's that's my favorite thing. I before the game, talking to people after the game, seeing them mill around downtown. I'm really looking forward to that. The weather's getting great here. There's going to be playoff hockey. and I'm looking forward to, the energy in the building spilling out onto 104th after the games. That, to me, that's a lot of fun. That gives me a lot of juice.
Does your routine and like the adrenaline for you, almost like a player, kind of ratchet up for the playoffs too?
Well, I mean, I certainly without the physical element, and I know you don't mean that. I don't know. It's hard for me to compare myself in any. I know you don't mean it, and I know you're not, but it's so hard for me to envision being a professional athlete and what that adrenaline must be like. I guess I would say I'm guessing there are some similarities. Of course, for the playoffs, and people sometimes, they jab me or whatever, and they say like, "Wow, don't peak too early," or "It's not game set."
Yeah.
And they don't understand, that I got 10 more gears. I mean, I do. I'm sorry. That's the one thing I'll say for myself is no one understands the gravity of every situation better than I do. And trust me, if there's a game 7 of a Stanley Cup final, you'll know. And then when someone says, "Wow, like you got nowhere to go," they'll be right. They'll be right, because I guarantee you, I'll max it out. I'll empty the tank. So yeah, I think of course you're going to be fired up for playoffs. I probably have more energy now than I did in February. It's just the nature of knowing that you're getting close to one finish line and at the same time getting ready to come out of the starting blocks for a whole new season.
You have another one for him, Jack? Or Dash, sorry.
Jack in the park, Dash in the park.
Yeah.
No, not really. I think I hear you say things like ability to connect, and that's really, I think, probably your greatest skill, right? And you've clearly got some empathetic skills to be able to always know when to go and when to ramp up and when to bring it down. And to me, you're maybe there's, I know you're a wrestling fan, Jack, and there's some, and I am too. So there's a bit of a, I see a bit of a parallel. I'm a
very specific wrestling fan. I am.
Oh, well, maybe.
I'm not a current wrestling fan. I am I could tell you most of what went on between 1986 and 1989. Now that happens to also coincide with the best year, of my opinion, of wrestling that will ever be. I mean, I just don't think there was ever a better time to be a wrestling fan than in those years. But I'm not a current wrestling fan. In other words, I never watched The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin or, the Heartbreak Kid to me was part of, the Rockers, a tag team I kind of despised. Yeah. And at the very tail end of my influence. I would tell you, but having said that, I do have some fond memories of watching wrestling religiously in those 4 years, which probably helped curb any sort of social development or chance I had with the ladies at that age.
Well, there's another thing we have in common.
I'll tell you 2 things that I found true when it comes to trying to date successfully is no woman I've ever met likes wrestling, and no woman I've ever met likes Rush. And I was a fan of both. And I was a fan of Rush before I knew they were Canadian. I was 13, 14 years old geeking out on Rush. So now you really have a pretty grim picture of my dating landscape in the late 1980s, early 90s.
Well, I love it. You know what? I actually did have a little bit of a who's your favorite wrestler, and did you grow up with Ole Anderson and the Briscoes and old Mid-Atlantic because you grew up in the East near Jim Crockett, right? But,
yeah, if you're a fan of me at all, you know that my favorite by far is the Macho Man. No one did it better than that dude. I mean, he was the best. He was the best. Aerial, voice, shtick, interview, costumes. He had it all. I mean, he was, sorry, there's no one with that kind of talent. I'm sorry, there was no better wrestler, no better showman than Randy Macho Man Savage. I don't even think it's close.
The complete package. Hey, well, that's a pretty cool segue, man, because that's exactly what I was kind of triggering to say is that, I feel like you have a cutting a wrestling promo in your call. Like there's that, you can't give too much, but there's a little bit, you hold back. But, the best wrestlers were always, amped up versions of themselves, kind of, right? Like they were still themselves, but they were relatable and they were, popular because they would, had that element, like a Stone Cold or whatever that you didn't watch. So that's, I see that tie into what you do. So, and again, in wanting to be respectful to your time, I'll just close with this and then I'll go over to Dursa and, Jack, you're the guest, so jump in and talk whenever the hell you want here. But to me, I just want to say thanks for taking the time today to come and chat with a couple of guys that are fans of the Oilers, fans of yours. We mention you all the time in podcasts. It's not something we're just saying to be nice because you're on the show. Thanks for evoking the emotion you do. I think like you've just made hockey more enjoyable, flat out. So Durst usually closes the show, so I'll go over to him for any final words. Jump in if you want, but that's all I got to say for tonight. Thank you.
Yeah. So when you took over this job from Hall of Famer Rod Phillips, and you followed in his footsteps, I know me as a kid growing up, I would play a minor hockey game on a Sunday, and Rod would kind of be the voice that steered you on your way home from your game. And you listen to him kind of tell the story of a game with that passion and pride that he had. And he would make you forget about how brutal the road conditions and all that were when you're driving home. And, you came into this job and it's almost like, going to the Chicago Bulls after the Jordan Pippen era. And I mean, you're basically our Derrick Rose. You took that job, you've ran with it, and you brought your own kind of passion and pride to it. And, on behalf of Oil Country, I want to thank you for it because, you've carved your own path, but you've taken Rod's legacy and now you're carving out one of your own. It's hard to believe, honestly, that you've been doing this for 12 years already because it seems like just yesterday you took the job. So, I mean, thanks for joining us, Jack Michaels. The pleasure is all ours tonight.
Well, I appreciate that. And, if I could just say that, the 12 years, it has gone by quickly. I've got a daughter graduating high school. When we moved here, she was 6. I've got a son in grade 10. When we moved here, he was 3. So, my family has kind of grown up here, and it's been a community second to none in terms of raising a family. It's been a club second to none in terms of the opportunity that it's afforded me. And most of all, I think I appreciate the fact that, I call games in a place where it matters. It matters to people here. I think it affects the mood of the city depending on how the Oilers are doing. And for me, that's rewarding. I think in every person's working life, they like the idea that what they're doing matters to someone else besides them. And that's a big thing for me as I go home fulfilled every night, not because of anything that someone, nice may say about me, but I can always say that I was part of something that mattered to a lot of people in this city. And it's a very small part, but I think, one of the reasons you're a fan of a sports team or you're a fan of a group of people or whatever is a sense of belonging, a sense of belonging to something greater than you are. And I can't think of a better place than Edmonton to have that sense.
Yeah, we are glad to have you, Jack, and we look forward to hearing you down the stretch we go and into the playoffs.
Hopefully I got a few more months in me. You get what I'm saying, fellas?
Yeah, we absolutely do. Yeah.
Thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right, Jack, keep your stick on the ice and keep reaching for the stars. Good night, Oil Country, from all of us here.
Let's go, Oilers.
You got it, bro.